Hello everyone. In today's video, we're going to show what the spreading method is used for and how it is defined. Let's start by examining our example. We'll open the sales budget application we developed earlier and load our data. In our example, I'm placing the category in the page field and selecting the textile category. As we can see, our this year plans are currently empty. As a planner, let's make our plan first. For example, let's assume there will be a 10% growth in sales units across all product groups compared to last year. Let's assume a 25% increase in the average unit initial price over last year. We wrote the formula wrong. Let's write it again. Yes, let's assume our costs have increased by 20%. Let's assume our markdown percentage remains the same as last year. Of course, we've only planned 1 month at the moment. Yes, we made a mistake somewhere. Sales revenues came out very high. Yes, we said our markdown percentages will be the same as last year. So, let's check now. For values like sales units that can be summed or averaged, QuickApp automatically performs spreading, meaning it distributes changes made in the total to the underlying cells. It increases or decreases the value of each cell proportionately based on its share of the total. For example, when our total is 11,000, and I change it to 15,000, it automatically adjusts the subcells so that the total reaches 15,000. Or let's look at the upper main group. When the total is 9,500 and we change it to 10,000, it adjusts the underlying cells so that the total reaches 10,000. Now, with the spreading method, for instance, I set this product group, the blouse and product group, to 2,000. Lock it with Ctrl+L to keep it fixed at 2,000, but I want the total to be 10,000. In this case, while this stays at 2,000, the other product groups are increased proportionally to make the total 10,000. Let's unlock it now. Although there is no problem with summable values, in values calculated with formulas, such as average unit initial price, average unit cost, or discount percentage, the distribution of the changes made above may not be as desired if there are locked cells in the subcells. For example, because there are no locked cells right now, when I want the average unit initial price to be 2,000 instead of 1,800, it increased all the lower cells proportionately to make the total 2,000. But now I'm going to revert this. Let's say, for example, that we set this part to 3,800 and want it to remain fixed. For example, if I lock this row again and want to make the total 2,000 instead of 1,800, as you can see, it won't reach 2,000. It will remain around 1,900 lira. That's why there's a concept called the spreading method in QuickApp to manage such situations correctly. The spreading method is a structure where we define how to distribute the 2,000 lira I entered to the lower cells. Let's now turn to our example and write the spreading method for the average unit initial price. Then return to here and examine these changes together. I'm saving the changes on the screen. I've saved the changes and closed my screen. To define the spreading method, I open the Edit Application app, go to the Values tab, and load the values of our application. The value we're interested in is average unit initial price, which was an editable value. Now we'll write its spreading method. While writing this spreading method, we should think, which values are affected by this value? As we can see, the sales initial revenue value is affected by this value. Looking at the formula for sales initial revenue, it's sales unit multiplied by average unit initial price. So in the spreading method for average unit initial price, I will say that it will be indirectly spread. First, it will calculate the sales initial revenue according to the newly entered value. Then, it will spread sales initial revenue in the usual way, because it's a summable value. After sales initial revenue is spread, it will calculate the average unit initial price value at the lowest detail with a return formula. To define the spreading method, double-click on the spreading method value, and the spreading method editor opens. In the UC section, we define by which value we'll do the spreading method. So, in our example, we're saying we'll do it based on the this year planned sales initial revenue. In the second section, we write how the this year planned sales initial revenue will be calculated based on the entered average unit initial price value. Here, we also write an Excel formula, of course. If error in parentheses, let's close the parentheses and write our formula. This year plan sales unit multiplied by this year plan average unit initial price. We've told it to calculate the sales initial revenue value in this way. If we want to open the exclude if section, this means that, when spreading, if there are lower cells that match the formula I wrote here, don't make any changes to those cells. Since we don't have such a situation for average unit initial price, I'll go directly to the return section. That is, calculate the this year planned sales initial revenue according to this formula for the newly entered average unit initial price value, spread it, and then calculate the average unit initial price value for the lowest cells with this formula. Again, if error, in parentheses, this year planned sales initial revenue divided by this year planned sales unit, and if there's an error, write 0. Yes, if you pay attention, we said with use which value the spreading will be done on and how it will be calculated. With the return, we specified with this formula how to calculate the value we're working on. That is, the average unit initial price, using the spread value. Yes, we defined our spreading method. Let's see it again with a double click. Now let's open our application again and load our data. Let's customize the view. Take the category to the page, and load it by selecting Textile again. Yes, there was 3,800 here earlier. We locked it, and now when we want this 1,900 to be 2,000, as you can see, it correctly calculated the necessary average unit initial price values so that the total would be 2,000 lira. While doing this, let's explain the method on the screen. It's actually doing this. QuickApp takes the newly entered 2,000 average unit initial price, multiplies it by the sales unit of 10,000, finds the new sales initial revenue value, and distributes the new sales initial revenue value to the lowest detail. After the distribution, it finds the necessary average unit initial price value by dividing the new sales initial revenue value by the detailed sales unit value. Now, let's write spreading methods for average unit cost and markdown as well, and finalize our screen. I'll close this again and save our changes. Another editable value that requires a spreading method is this year plan average unit cost. This is also an editable value. When we come to its spreading method again, looking at which value is affected by average unit cost, we see that sales cost is affected. Then, for the spreading method of average unit cost, we will use sales cost. We will spread sales cost, and then calculate the average unit cost value by dividing the sales cost value obtained in detail by the sales unit. Let's open the editor, and in the use section, I write this year plan sales cost. The formula, again, inside of if error, this year plan sales unit multiplied by average unit cost. No exclude if. In the return, again, if error, in parentheses, this year plan sales cost, divided by, this year plan sales unit. Yes, this is the spreading method for average unit cost. And finally, markdown. This is also an editable value. When writing the spreading method for markdown, looking at which value is affected by markdown, we see that sales revenue is affected. Sales revenue is calculated from markdown. So I will write the spreading method for markdown using sales revenue. In the use section, let's write this year plan sales revenue. How will we calculate sales revenue? This year plan sales initial revenue multiplied by parentheses 1 minus markdown percentage. Yes, well, I should use exclude if here. Why? Because when I'm spreading based on sales revenue, if the markdown value in the lower cells is somehow 0 or less than 0, I may not want any distribution to be made to those cells. So I activate exclude if, and write here, this year plan markdown percentage less than or equal to 0. That is, I am saying not to include cells with markdown 0 or negative in the spread. And I write the return formula. After spreading sales revenue, calculate markdown as follows, if error. In parentheses, 1 minus this year plan sales revenue, divided by this year plan sales initial revenue. Yes, we've clicked OK. Yes, we wrote spreading methods for all three values that require it. Let's open our application again. Before loading our data this time, I take the category to page and load it. From the category section, I select textile. Now, for these two values, for example, I want my cost to be 400, and as we can see, it is distributed so that it becomes 400. When we decided to set the discount rate to 33%, without changing the locked cells, the other cells changed, and the total cost reached 33%. Sorry, the markdown percentage. Yes, we brought our cost to 400 and the average unit initial price to 2,000 lira. Finally, in this video, we tried to explain the spreading method with a real-world example. I hope it was helpful. See you in the next video of the Advanced Features series. Stay safe and take care.